Hey everyone, this is Cassandra with Spokehaven, and today we're here to talk about the Salsa Fargo. I decided to pick one up this year to replace a couple of bikes that I have in my lineup, but I haven't really gone over it yet. I have made some changes from what it was kind of stock, so let's go over that. So this is the 2020 Salsa Fargo. As you can see, I made some changes to it. If you look up online, you can see all the kind of normal specs, but I'll go over some of them really quickly. I haven't changed too much, but on the rear we have an 1142 cassette and a SRAM Apex kind of road / cyclocross / 1x, their 1x rear derailleur on the rear. The front did come with, I want to say it was a 32 tooth front chainring. As you can see here, I have a custom stem cap. This is care of the artist Bryn Merrell, which you can find her on Instagram. She has an online store where she sells some custom stem caps. I think she's done some other items. She does artwork and has some other cool collaborations she's done. So you can check her out. I'll link where you can find her in the video description. The rest of the cockpit here, you can see I have a Jones H-bar with the kind of standard Ergon Grips that a lot of people who bike tour and use these bars really like. And then I haven't wrapped the entire bar. I'm kind of waiting to see what my cockpit configuration is going to be. I'm likely going to put my bike packing roll right here, and then my Garmin will probably live here. I'm kind of not really sure on that yet. Otherwise, some of it might live up front. I did kind of reclaim the stock handlebar tape that came on the bike with the drop bars to wrap the front there, made it nice and clean. I also have some Supacaz bar ends that I think were left over from a handlebar job that I did, a handlebar wrap job I did on a road bike that I ended up helping my partner sell. And then we have the Sram X1 shifter. So to be honest, this shifter does not really pair well with the existing derailleur on the bike. I thought that I had read on SRAM's website that they should work together, but there's definitely been some issues, and I took it to a really good mechanic friend of mine just to make sure I wasn't going crazy, because I was having all sorts of issues getting it to shift cleanly and correctly, and he also kind of dug into it and spent a good amount of time on it, probably almost as much as I had, just to try to figure out if it had something to do with how the wheel was placed in the bike, or if the cable was bad or the housing was bad. The rear derailleur was working with the prior setup, so we're not really sure, but I'm going to have an Apex specific 1x11 speed flat bar shifter that's going to be arriving hopefully in a couple of days, to give that a try and just see if it has something to do with the pull ratio. I'm not really sure. I thought all the 1x stuff kind of played together with SRAM, but I could be wrong. If you kind of know, and maybe you've experienced this, comment below, because I'm not really sure what the deal is. If you know someone from SRAM, or if you've played around with this setup before with the 1X shifter and the Apex 11 speed rear and also had problems, I would like to hear. Another major change is the stem. I have a giant Contact SL. It's a 110 length stem, so it's pretty long. But with the H-bars, the really short stem that comes stock on this bike because of the drop bars, which was also a very comfortable configuration, is just way too short. My reach was way too short. So the 110 was just about perfect, actually. It feels really nice. It feels very comfortable. I have a long enough reach that I can kind of get tucked in an arrow position, and enough rise on the bar to where it's not too high up. Usually I like my handlebars a little bit lower than my saddles. It used to be the opposite. I kind of used to be one of those people that had the handlebars way up and above my saddle height, but as I've gained more flexibility and learned that glute activation and hamstring activation works a little bit better when you're down lower and more of kind of a arrow position, it just makes for a better pedal efficiency, and my legs don't get as tired, and I have more power when I'm riding. So that's kind of my idea behind having the bars a little bit lower. That might change, who knows, you know, as I ride and do longer distances on this bike, it might be a little bit different. So as you can see, I left the tires stock on the bike. These are the Terravale Sparwoods. They're a 29 by 2.2 inch wide tire that are made for kind of a little bit of every surface. So they are very nice for kind of gravel, little bit of loose gravel, packed gravel, little bit of kind of easy single track, nothing too kind of gnarly where you need a lot of grip, or kind of chunkier tires for mud and such. But these should be good for pretty much any kind of bike packing I'll be doing, at least around here. And the only real difference is that I made it tubeless. So I used the MucOff branded anodized kit there. So you can see the valve stems are kind of that nice red color, and they set up pretty easy. I did have to tape the rims a couple of times around, kind of more so than I normally would. And I did use the MucOff branded tubeless sealant in these because that's what I had available at work. Thank you to MucOff for sending us a whole bunch of stuff. When I was working for Wheel and Sprocket, they sent us a whole bunch of free bulk items to use and try, and also some cleaners, and so I gave their tubeless sealant a go, and it worked out nicely. Another one of my favorite features of this bike are the TRP Spire brakes. I had the spikes on, I think, the fat bike that I had for a minute, the Badger Cycleworks fat bike. I ended up pimping that thing out. I got it for so cheap when I bought it via EP. I put a bunch of cool stuff on it. I never made a video about it. This was kind of like pre my wanting to do YouTube videos and bike reviews, but so I liked the spikes a lot, and I like that they put non-hydraulic brakes on this. I don't have anything against hydraulic brakes, it's just that they're a little bit more high maintenance, and in the field, if something goes wrong with a hydraulic brake, it's not very quick and easy to do like a full-on brake bleed in the field. Also to carry, you know, hoses and barbs and blah 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 blah, versus, you know, with this I would just have to bring, you know, a spare cable, some spare brake pads, which are very easy to swap out on here. And more bike shops, I feel like, would be able to supply me with what I need for this particular brake if I were out on like a couple day trip and something went wrong, or if I'm out, you know, kind of far from civilization. So I really like these brakes. They work really well. They modulate really well. And that reminds me, I never went over the brake levers that I upgraded to. I'll show you those next. Alright kids, so here are the Avid speed dial brake levers. These things are freaking amazing. So they're super cheap, and B, you can use them on short or long pull brake levers, or I mean brake calipers. Like, so the Spires from TRP are a short pull kind of road style brake. So with the drop bar apex levers that came on this bike stock, they worked, you know, well with that. But to go to a flat bar lever, you need one that's a short pull, and let's be honest, right now it's kind of hard to find anything from Shimano or anyone else that's a short pull brake lever because, you know, part shortages. So luckily I was able to find these. I could not order them through our suppliers, so I had to go to the old internet and found some, but I'm so glad I did because they were so easy to set up out of the box. Like, I've never had such an easy time, and they're made well, and they're just awesome. And I know that I can use them on another bike if, say, I eventually get rid of this one, although I really have liked this bike thus far, so hopefully it'll stay in my lineup for a while. But yeah, Avid speed dials. You can use them with pretty much any mechanical disc brake, and they rule. Alright, this is probably the most blingy part of my bike, but this is an absolute black oval chainring in a 34 tooth configuration, which they say on their website should feel kind of more like a 36. The reason I went with this, A, was to drop weight, because I'm sorry, SRAM or Truvative, but those chain rings you guys make on these stylo cranks, I know that they are meant to like take a beating, but they are heavy AF. So yeah, I dropped I dropped a little bit of weight, added some kind of higher gearing for me to pick up speed. I found when I was commuting on this bike, I was just wishing that I had another like harder gear all the time. And I think for around here, the gearing will be okay. I mean, we'll see, but we'll find out. And then I pulled my Crank Brothers pedals from my Krampus and my gravel bike. I don't know, I swap pedals a lot and put it on this. So if we look back here, you can see I have a Brooks Cambium C15 on the bike. It's a little on the narrow side for how upright I am on this bike, but I'm going to give it a try. It's usually a little bit more comfortable once I have bike shorts on. Usually I was riding this saddle on the Topstone, which is I have set up in a much more kind of road bikey configuration, so a little bit more pelvic tilt forward on the saddle, which is kind of what this one is designed for, but I'm going to give it a try. I do have a couple of different options from Ergon, and I have a specialized saddle that I might give a try as well. It's not the Ruby, it's a Power, I think, saddle, so we'll see. I have an Easton carbon seat post that I got, I think I snagged it from a bike bin at my old job, or maybe I'd bought it. I don't even remember how it came into my possession, but I had it in my parts bin. And then I have the Salsa Liplock, which this bike comes with a black one, but I had an orange one on the Krampus, so I just stole it off of that and kind of went with this cool kind of ruby / orange colorway on this bike, which I've deemed this bike Poppy. That's her name. I like to name my bikes, it's kind of fun. Kind of just wanted to show off the bike's paint. It's beautiful. It's kind of this sparkly, kind of deep red maroon color with a silver logo that kind of changes color in the light. So sometimes it looks gold, sometimes it looks silver. Kind of just reflects the light back onto the bike. And then you have these kind of cool little hints of like southwestern flair. So you have like a sun and a little cactus, and I apologize if this is not in focus, I'm trying. There's also a little snake. It's a little rattlesnake on the chainstay on the inside. It's just so cute. I love it. The designer who designed the aesthetics of this bike did a super fun job on this, and I really, really like it. Did I mention there are trees also on the fork? And let's talk about the fork. Alright, so on the Fargo, these used to have a strictly steel fork from what I can remember back in the day. I've had a crush on this bike for a long time, to be honest. I've always wanted a Salsa, and I just never, I don't know, it was just because I think I had never really worked for a Salsa dealer, so I never had access to them as a brand. So I just never bought one, but my dreams came true this last year. Alright, back to the fork, like I said I was going to talk about. So it is a carbon fiber fork. They do have a through axle on the front of this bike, and they do for 2021 as well. And there's a ton of mounting points. You can see I have two different versions of kind of pack cages. So I've got the Widefoots on the back here. I put those back here because they're a little bit lower profile, and then I put the Blackburn, the big boys, big girls, big folks, big whatever, the big gender non-conforming, amazing pack mount there, and so I could kind of load up, you know, the front of the bike quite nicely, and I kind of like putting the load on the front of the bike. I just feel like it handles a little bit better putting the load on the front of the bike, which is why I put these on here, because I want to try that configuration and you know, having the bigger handlebar bag that'll kind of live around here and not so much loading up the rear. I do have the Blackburn Elite bag back here, which I freaking love this thing. I've used it on so many bikes, and it's amazing. Blackburn, you did a great job with these, and I would definitely buy another one. Kudos to them and their team for their bag designs. They've done a really nice job. Also, sponsor me. No, I'm just kidding. Luckily, I was able to get a discount on their gear, but, you know, it would be nice to occasionally not have to pay for things, but, you know, until I hit, you know, 50,000 people watching my videos, that's probably never going to happen, but, you know, we can dream. But, yeah, so I would like to minimalize what I'm putting back here, because it kind of feels like when you weight down the back of the bike, it just kind of like drags you versus the front of the bike. You're kind of pushing the weight, and I don't know, it just feels like the bike handle's a little bit easier. It's a little bit better to manage, a little bit less tippy feeling. So yeah, you have 3 little zits right here. You have one mid fork, which I'm guessing you could put some sort of like low rider rack situation there, and then 3 more zits on the front of the fork for all of your mounting needs. The only thing I will show you, I'll just move this around and show you that the one thing that's my kind of pet peeve about this fork. So this, oh, look at that beautiful Salsa logo. Okay, this right here, the little front, it doesn't have a way to mount anything. So if I wanted to do like a Marks rack from Nitto or, you know, something of the like, you can't. Oh, I don't know if they just like couldn't do that, or like what the kind of thought was with that additional like hole there. I'm not really sure like what that's for. If that's for like routing a dropper or something. I don't really know, and I don't think it really says on the Salsa website, but yeah, right here, if there was like a threaded hole through there, they used to have one. I don't know if it was on their carbon forks, but it was definitely on the steel forks. But like that would be perfect. It would make this bike even more versatile, because then you could put little mini racks if you wanted to keep the drop bars, and like put a kind of bigger like front bag situation without something that's kind of like perma mounted, or, you know, long-term mounted, like if you want to just, I don't know, or a little front rack bag. That's my only real beef, unfortunately, that they don't do that. But I can understand you can't do everything. No bike is going to be the absolute perfect solution for everybody. So, I mean, look at this thing. It's amazing as it is. It's the ultimate adventure mobile. Alright, so as per usual, I'm losing light on my video shoot here. So, just overall in general, my happiness with the Salsa Fargo has been 2 thumbs up thus far. It's a really fun bike to ride. The Jones bars are amazing. If you look online, that's like the top change that I feel like a lot of people make with that bike, is putting on the Jones bars and making it a little bit more of an all-around kind of like world touring bike. And I am super thrilled to finally own a Salsa. Yes, so worth all the bogusness that I had to deal with in the past year with the whole pandemic and having to work a bunch and dealing with people who were unhappy because their bikes weren't in stock. So worth it to have this bike. And I didn't really get into it before, but this bike is going to be kind of replacing 2 of my bikes. So the Soma Double Cross, which admittedly I was going to sell that bike, but I've decided to instead turn it into a 2x10 and make it my dedicated Wahoo kicker bike. So I had to go through a whole saga of sourcing a front derailleur for that thing. Let me tell you, 2x10 Sram front derailleurs are kind of unicorns right now. So I had to go all the way to eBay to find one to source, and then found out that because it wasn't a braze-on mount, it was in fact a band clamp, and it wasn't the right size. So then I had to take to the internet even more to find an adapter for me to use said front derailleur on bike. So that showed up in the mail yesterday. So at some point while I'm still on fun employment, this will be kind of fun to watch in the future, to be like, huh, that's right, that 2 weeks I went without a job, or actually it was more like 4 weeks. Ooh. Anyway, I'm gonna just try to crank out projects, which has been kind of a little sad because I haven't been doing riding. I've been just doing all these projects to get my bikes ready to ride for the summer. So I'm going to do that and then bring it upstairs, put it on the kicker, and then on days that I either get home really late or it's crappy and rainy outside or whatever, or it's 110 degrees out with humidity, I will have a way to still train, still ride my bike on the trainer. So that's where that bike's going to live, at least for now. We'll see. And then the other bike it's going to replace is my Surly Krampus. So the Krampus, you know, I love it. I'm not in love with it. It is a fun bike. It's really fun to ride on like flow trails and some kind of like techie rocky stuff, but it is so heavy, especially like it's 4130 steel. It's maybe double butted, I don't really know. So it's just really heavy. The wheels are really heavy. I tried converting the wheels to tubeless. It was a whole thing. Didn't really work out, so I put some smaller tires on it. Funnily enough, my partner may try to use it for one of our upcoming bike packing trips, although that bike is pretty limited with mounts. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not really sure if we're gonna do that or not. And then, you know, I ultimately probably think I will sell that bike. Somebody will be really stoked. It's an OG first generation Surly Krampus. It's in the bass boat green color that everybody always is looking for. Here, sorry, I'm gonna make this so you can see me a little bit better. So that ultimately probably will come up for sale. So I took a lot of the kind of blingy fancy parts off of it, put it on this bike, although it still has some pretty nice components. I upgraded a lot of the stuff that was on there, so it makes it easier to ride the bike. It has a really wide gear range on it. You can see that. I think, did I do a video on that bike? I don't even remember. I think I did. If I did, here it is. Here's the link. If not, you can go to my blog, which is spokehaven.com, and I did a write-up about it and all the changes I made to it. I actually had the Jones bar on that bike because I was going to try to make that a bike packing bike, but it's just, A, the mounts were terrible on the OG one. B, it's heavy. It's a slog. So that's kind of where the Fargo comes in. Again, I wasn't looking to buy this bike at all. We brought this in for a customer who, shout out, if you know who you are, hopefully you're watching. Don't want to like blow up anybody's name or anything, tell them where they live and all that stuff. But he ended up buying a super sick titanium version of the Fargo from a guy off of eBay with like Di2 shifting and like all this really fancy stuff. So when he decided not to buy this one, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna test ride it. And I rode it in the store and I was like, holy shit, this is the perfect size bike. It fits me like so well. It's so comfortable. It's so light. So fun fact, they use triple butted steel tubing on these bikes. And then with the carbon fork, it's like, pff. And then also to set it up tubeless, then you drop another like 1 or 2 pounds off of it. So it's incredibly like nimble and light for being an adventure bike. So kudos to Salsa. Please continue to use really high-end tubing and components on your bikes. Like that makes a huge difference. I know they're a little bit on the pricey side, but ultimately it's so worth it. Like, no shade to Surly, but for being owned by the same parent company, like, I feel like they could do a little bit better with speccing their bikes for the cost. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this video up so I don't look like a crazy person talking to a camera in the park, but thank you guys for watching. If you have questions, comment below, email me. You can follow me on Instagram at Spokehaven. I'm at spokehaven.com, my blog, if you want more in-depth photos and details on bikes and events and things. See links below for kind of what the parts were, where I got everything, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.